So welcome, Tasha.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today.
So we just had a little conversation, but I want you to share with us, where did your story start before you discovered that self-love was important?
So I grew up in a very family business oriented family, entrepreneurial family. My dad was a second generation business owner in his family, and my mom stayed home with myself and then my three younger siblings. And my dad doted on me a lot when I was little, was constantly telling me how strong and smart I was. And then when I went to college, or probably in high school, I kind of took some left turns when he and I were not seeing eye to eye about a lot of things, as you do, right? Like when you start creating your independence. So I went to college. I went to school to be a stage manager in New York, and then realized I did not want to work with actors. What I actually wanted to do was help people, kind of moving through the emotional transition of things. So after a couple of years, I got my BS degree in family studies. And then instead of going into social work like I thought I would, I actually ended up going into entrepreneurship myself. I started with a direct sales company who introduced me to personal development. And I learned from a mentor, about Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and a lot of these big names that talked about motivation and developing yourself as a person, which I had never heard of before. And so I started listening to it, and I was like a sponge, like, give me more, obsessively listening to the next one, the next one. This was when we had CDs in the car. We were listening to CDs that you had to plug in and pull back out. And I really became obsessed with being more productive, more efficient, more valuable to the people around me. And it wasn't until 2014 that I really started to kind of look around and go, okay, I love what I'm doing to a degree. I don't love selling products, but I love working with people in the capacity that I'm working with. I was a sexual health and wellness educator for those 13 years in direct sales. So it's helping women talk about their bodies on a regular basis and helping them kind of break down some of the rules they've had, handed to them from generation after generation about what's okay and what's not okay, right? Like what body parts are okay, what body parts are not okay, what size should they all be, who likes them and how much, and all of these things that come with physical intimacy. But we were having a lot of emotional conversations about this well. So I was well versed in loving your body and being aware and the clinical side of things, all of that. So in 2014, when I started getting these flare-ups of like 5, 7, 10 days of flu-like symptoms, but no actual fever, nobody could tell us what was going on. I was going to doctor after doctor because it would happen for 10 days and I'd be okay for a couple of days and then it would happen again. And so it's just this weird cycle. And I was canceling, party presentations that I was making money for my family. I was not able to do meetings for my team. And I was, getting distraught because this is something that my entire family's household income was based on this. And, I'd spent 13 years building this. And I realized I wanted to start coaching outside of the team and outside of the consultants or the clients I had, and started kind of moving in that direction, but it was too late and my body was just shutting down. And so it first thing was a food sensitivity test. I figured out that soy was my arch nemesis. Like if it had even a drop of soy, I was laid out for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a month. And so I started developing this really huge fear of food. Um, we had to cook all of my meals at home, and I was traveling a lot because I was a corporate trainer for the corporate office as well, taking big, huge coolers with me everywhere I go because I was so scared that someone would not take this seriously because it wasn't technically an allergy, right? Like I wasn't going to have an anaphylactic reaction. And my reaction took 72 hours to kick in. So that's why it took so long for us to figure out what it was, because I was tracking things, but nothing in those 24 hours was consistent. It was 3 days later. So anyway, through that process, I started developing this huge fear around food. And then when the symptoms started kicking in again about 6 months later, I was like, what is going on? I'm not eating any soy. Like I'm making my own food. And we figured out there was another sensitivity, but really what it was is my immune system was breaking down because for so long, my body was whispering to me, that it needed attention. I was tired all the time. I needed caffeine constantly to stay awake, to do anything. I mean, even, I would be up late doing parties, but I'd be sleeping if I needed to in the morning because my kids were super little still, and I would still need a nap in the middle of the day, and I was dragging. So my body was giving me all these signals.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I can see that, but when the moment, I just saw it as an annoying obstacle for me to be able to keep going, keep working, because I had developed this really intense work addiction where that was the only way I felt valuable, is if I was constantly producing money, producing impact on other people, and that this lack of what I needed was deep. I mean, it was a huge canyon of there's that's not even a conversation. I'm not even going to have the conversation about what I want or what I need. And so really that's kind of where that began, that journey of leaving that life behind and really redesigning over the last 6 years where my life is going and where it has been.
Wow. So there's like so many things to unpack there, with the
Yeah.
food and the money and associating that you need to be working to be worthy. That was one I struggled with.
Yeah.
So what was that? I mean, like you said you were going doctor to doctor. What was the moment that you actually realized like this has to change right now because I can't go further?
Um, I was thinking about it before we started talking today, really, because I haven't thought about this time in my life in a while, because I had spent later on in my journey, I spent about 18 months in bed where I couldn't do anything. And I spent a lot of time in those 18 months just really dissecting and, like you said, unpacking all these years of the choices I was making. So when I knew that, like, even when I got this list of food sensitivities, and then we saw some other things with hormonal imbalances, and then we saw some other, like, these little areas that after 15 years, 20 years of really abusing your systems, there's more than one problem, right? There's always
Yeah.
more than one problem when you've avoided it for that long. So we started uncovering these pieces, and I'm like, I'm so broken. How am I going to work and do all this? That was my thought, not how am I going to heal? How am I going to love my kids? Like, how am I going to work if I am breaking? And it wasn't until probably a year and a half later, I mean, a solid 18 months later, maybe 2 years even, where I was pushing and pushing and pushing, even after this long period of having literally sometimes a month completely out of commission, that I was lying in bed. I was supposed to go to our annual convention, and I couldn't fly. I couldn't drive. I just, there was no way that I could handle that much stimulation while I was traveling. So I decided that instead of going, I would be glued to my computer and watch the entire thing, because they had a lot of live streams, and I would just work my butt off while they were there so I could still work and still show up. I was lying in bed, and my husband came up, and he's been amazing through the whole thing. He brought me food, and what do you need, tea? What do you need? What do you need? Water. And my hands couldn't type. They started aching up and down my arms and into my hands and my joints and my fingers, and I couldn't type, and I just melted down, because it was literally my body saying, you need to stop. The last thing that I tried to do was type, and it would not let me do it. And I'm like, I can't do anything. And he's like, that's okay. You need to rest. I can't rest. I need to work. And that's when I knew this is bad. This is bad, that I am pushing so hard still, even with all of the evidence, all of the clear as day evidence that I had, that I still was willing to put all of that at risk, all my family and my health long term at risk, because I needed to work. And my body said, you're done. And that's when I knew this is deeper than just having some food sensitivities. This is deeper than just having a hormonal imbalance. And that's really when I started to kind of dissect it.
It always is deeper. There's always that surface level
Yeah.
thing, but it's not till you work with those crazy shadows that hang out inside.
For sure.
So after that moment, what did you do to start changing that? Because I know now your life is way different than it
Yeah.
was then, and you're empowering others to come and rise up from these kind of things. Like,
Yeah.
how did you start that journey?
Well, I had really, for me, it was a lack of spirituality for those 15 years. Just a lack of, I leaned really hard into the logical side of life. This makes sense. This is the science. This is the data. This is facts. Um, and a lot of that's based and rooted in my childhood. I was gaslit a lot when I was little and as a teenager. And so in that, when you're that age and you are being told what you know to be true, what you saw with your eyes, what you heard with your ears is not true, you develop this need and this mechanism to constantly factually produce information because you need to see it for your eyes and have someone else see it and validate that yes, that did actually happen, yes, that is true. And so that was my what I leaned on. And when, no matter what evidence was in front of me, I still wasn't getting better. I realized that I needed to like pull back and started kind of working inside. So we moved from a 3-level home to a 2-level home. And in that process, in an effort to downsize, my husband built me a Zen room, and it was a separate room. Yeah, he's amazing. A separate room, really tranquil. Really, a lot of he's like wood plank panels on the walls to make it look really natural. Very similar. This was kind of going on in some areas of it. I mean, this is definitely um, this manifestation wall, which is what we have now. This place for me to go where my rule was I couldn't take any work in there. I still was working, but I was drastically reduced. And my expectations for what I was producing was much, much less. And I would go in there and I was told that if I meditated, my body would start to calm down a little bit. Because had gotten to the point where I couldn't handle light and sound a lot of the time. So much, and then I would get migraines, and I couldn't sleep because of it either. And so all of these factors create a lot of solitude, and that's what I needed. I needed to not distract myself by what other people needed or what other people wanted and what other people were saying and doing. I had to be by myself and learn to sit with that and sit with the emotions, sit with the fear, sit with the internal desire to go and do and just be. And so that is where I moved into and kind of leaned pretty hard into it, and it paid off. I mean, it still pays off. It's one of the most profound practices that has changed everything. And I was the person that anytime someone said something about meditating, I'm like, are you crazy? Sitting still? Have you lost your damn mind? Like, have we met? My husband joked for 10 years, the first 10 years we were together, I'm like a shark. Like I couldn't sit still. My foot was constantly moving. If I had to sit and watch a family movie, it was torturous because that was 2 hours of not doing anything. And so to voluntarily sit and listen to someone else tell me how to breathe, are you kidding me? um, but because of that, and I think it's like 16 journals I now have in the last 5 years, that journaling process, just letting things be as opposed to trying to fix things, leaning into that being still space, not reflecting too far back, not worrying about two things too far in the future. That's really where things started to change for me internally.
So what was the first meditation session like? Just because I know I personally am the go 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 masculine full
Yeah.
steam ahead
Oh
energy,
yeah.
and stepping into that feminine space when they tried to make me sit down, I was like, I've been here for 10 seconds. I'm
Yeah.
over it. So what was
Yeah.
that first like little bit of time like for you?
So what's funny is I actually got introduced to meditation, again, so typical on tracks with my history. I was forced into meditation because one of the avenues that I sought out when traditional medicine couldn't help me, and that's been the case for 95% of my journey, that I got acupuncture. And I was terrified. I used to call myself a big wimp. What I realize now is I'm just really sensitive. I was so terrified of these needles going in my body. But the expert who had helped me with the food sensitivities and had given me some kind of life back again highly suggested that I went and did this. And I had a bunch of friends who were in energy healing and those kinds of things. And so I was open to the idea, especially the more and more I was seeing that traditional medicine, at least for me, was not actually helping. It was just making me run around. So I made the appointment. I went into the acupuncturist office. I'm lying on the table. She's telling me in very short sentences what's happening, what I'm doing. And then she has like, I don't know, 36 or 38 needles from head to toe. some in my belly with a heat lamp on my belly. And I was like, well, this is kind of cozy and warm. And then she turned on some meditation kind of flute gong kind of music and then left. And she said, I'll be back in 20 minutes. I said, okay. So she left, and within like 10 seconds, I was like, oh my God, I can't move. Like I was terrified to move because I was scared I was going to hurt myself, right? Like I was going to like puncture an artery or something. I don't know how this stuff works. And I realized in that moment that I'm going to have to sit still for 20 minutes because I'm held hostage. Like I can't actually move. And that is how I discovered meditation, because I was lying there on the table, listening to the music and then calming my breath down because I was so scared about what was happening, that I ended up realizing that this is what meditation is. It's being present with what's going on in the moment. It's not about erasing or avoiding the thoughts. It's not about completely clearing your mind. It's about clearing the judgment from your mind. And it's about allowing yourself to just breathe in your moment and feel and see and experience where you are in the now. At least that's one of the versions of meditation. And I was like, okay, I can see why this is beneficial. I find it hilarious that I'd have 38 needles inside my body for this to happen, but that tracks. That makes about sense. So that's how I did it first. So because I was physically held down and I meditated, then I was able to see, okay, I'll listen to a couple minutes of a guided meditation. For me, guided meditation was the only way that was going to happen for probably about a year. That's what I did. I didn't have any kind of silent, alone meditation. And so the guided meditation also made it really easy for me to not have to be in control of my mind that was already out of control.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to make up, is like start where you're at, like the silent, clear your thoughts, sit in silence, for hours. That's not where you should start. But that's, for me, that was what I thought of meditation.
Yeah.
And why I was so terrified to even like get into the space. And now I'm like a yoga teacher. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
well, and all of my clients get scared when I suggest meditation. I mean, all of them most of them are very similar to me, right? Like we help the people that have traveled or are traveling a similar path. And what I ended up doing was creating a 1-hour course on how to make meditation made easy. Like it doesn't have to be this huge process, but there are so many unknowns because there's not one right way to do it. So I created a step-by-step process that I used and that I've given to friends and stuff throughout the years, that makes it easy to just sit down and do it after you've done these first few things beforehand, that you can do over time. So you're not having to create the space, decide that you're in the mood for it, figure out what meditation you're going to listen to, and actually do it, and then know what to do while, like, it does feel overwhelming because it isn't just meditate. It is, 6-7 step process. And so that's one of the free courses that I have with my membership group.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you say you bring this to clients. So like the people, where are you meeting your clients, like in their journey right now? Like you say, we all help each other on the path that we were on, which I 100% agree. We're all helping transformation, even though we're all
Right.
in the coaching world doing the same kind of thing, doing it completely differently. Where are you meeting your clients in their journey right now?
So like, where are they in their journey?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
where do
So
you come in their journey point?
yeah. So it varies from person to person. My average client is in there between 30, maybe 32 and 45. It's generally been women, but that's, I think, mostly because that's who I resonate with now. I was resonating with men before I got sick. Like you said, I was in masculine energy. My husband and I joked about it all the time. We would go to any kind of social gathering, and I would always be with the guys talking about, work and business and numbers and those kinds of more assertive, aggressive kind of topics. And he was always joking around with the wives in the kitchen and talking about those things. So we definitely have both balanced out in our energies. But yeah, I'm definitely leaning more in the feminine energy these days and trying to keep my masculine side where it belongs. So the clients I'm usually working with have identified that something's just not right. Something's missing, or they feel like they're looking around going, I don't know how I got here. And I know that this can't be it. There's something more that I'm supposed to do here that isn't about taking care of my kids, although if you're a parent, all of us love our children, but that is not enough, because the idea is if you're good enough at being a parent, they will eventually not need you. And so we need something that's above and beyond being the partner, being the children. And my clients have just identified that and are not sure how to do something about it. And so we go through the 5 life elements that I discovered in my journey that have really helped me kind of balance out the work addiction or the complete avoidance of going to work because you feel like you can only be a caregiver. And so we navigate through those 5 areas based on their own personal identification that something's just not right. I know I'm missing something.
Yeah, finding that balance and making sure you are part of that balance is so
Yeah.
important. And it's such a struggle to make. It's, I don't know, for me, I'm not a parent, but I mean, I still struggle just being a wife, that
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh my goodness, I'm a fire wife, so my husband's only home a certain number of days a
Right.
month, and like this month it's 5 days, so I feel like I can't do anything else for me on those 5 days he's home.
Yeah.
But I realize now that I'm still going to go to the gym. It's an hour of my day. Like,
Right.
I'm going to go swim because I really enjoy the water aerobics with all of my older friends.
Yeah.
And it's so important to find a way to find that balance. And it took having a coach. I
Yep.
couldn't do it alone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, boundaries is a huge part of our conversations, because most of us, if we're in the situation where you don't have what you want, it's because that you did not learn how to establish boundaries in your relationship with other people or with yourself. And so I would say probably 50% of the conversation we have within each life element is the boundaries and how to ask for what you need, but also ask for those people that your inner circle, those people that do get to have a say in your day-to-day experience, in the sense of, you respect their feedback. What do they need from you so that you can negotiate those things, how to have those hard conversations so that everybody has what they need and no one feels like they are the martyr, right? We don't want we don't need to have that syndrome either. And so having those conversations about boundaries and understanding and accepting that what we need for ourselves to make us feel good is benefiting the person who we're theoretically taking time away from.
So, what are some of your non negotiables for your day
Yeah.
today?
So that's a great question. And it's one of my favorite topics because I think so few of us have these. So my non-negotiable is I go to bed early. One of the lasting health pieces that I'm using or I'm still working with is my sleep system. So my body started waking up at 3:30 in the morning back in probably almost a year ago. And it's just part of my nervous system still trying to maneuver its way back to a healthy cycle. So I go to bed at 7:30 every night, regardless of what's happening. There's a few occasions, maybe once or twice a month, where it requires me to stay up past that time. But my husband does all of the evening things with the kids. They take care of the kitchen after dinner. They do anything after 5:30 p.m. My husband's on dad duty, and I handle the morning shift. So that's a non-negotiable for me. Um, Another non-negotiable for me is I have to have uh, solitude. I'm an introvert. I extrovert well, but I'm an introvert. And so if I do not have time where no one's talking to me or asking me questions, then I am really short fused, and it just makes it really difficult for me to connect with people that I love. So that's a non-negotiable. So whether that's an hour in the morning, which is pretty easy when you're getting up 3:30 in the morning,
Right.
um, hour in the morning to journal and meditate. And I usually engage my body some way, whether it's yoga or just light stretching, depending on what's going on. Those are my definite non-negotiables. When I'm really, really engaged in my alignment and when I'm really, listening to what I need, I also am practicing gratitude on a regular basis. Gratitude practice of expressing it, not just feeling it, because it is pretty easy for me after this many years practicing gratitude for myself, but expressing gratitude for the people who have shown up for me in certain ways, and also for people who show up in little ways throughout the day that don't ever get recognized for those things. And so that's my A game. When I'm at my A game, those
Yeah.
are non-negotiables.
Gratitude is, I mean, I never understood the power. Everyone's like, have a gratitude journal. And I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time. I mean, I think it. So why do I need to
Yeah.
write it down? And then when I started writing it down and then I started sharing it with other people, I mean, the relationships in my life improved and some of the relationships dissolved, I found.
Yes.
Because I was like,
Yes.
oh, I have nothing nice to say to this person that I'm allowing in my space and taking my energy every day.
Yes. And that's huge.
It's very eye-opening.
It's powerful. Yeah, when you write pen to paper is such a powerful thing, and I'm grateful to see a little bit of this pulling back of the digital era. I love, obviously there's so many values, so much value and so much opportunity with technology, but there is a human aspect of writing pen to paper that makes a huge difference in your experience and being able to use this tactile experience to clarify part of your journey and where you are is it's a huge benefit.
So do you have a special place still in your home that you go for your 1 hour of solitude every day?
We do. This house is a little tiny for us, but it was, we moved to this house finally because I was no longer able to travel stairs for a while. So right now, this wall that I'm sitting in front of has a huge, has a bunch of planters and some twinkle lights and some visualizing things that I use. And so I spend time in the evenings here with also my vision boards and those kinds of things. In the morning, since my husband's still sleeping, there is a place in my office that I sit on a comfy couch with a blanket, and that's my space. Generally speaking, though, everyone in our family has a space that is theirs that we can go and just be by ourselves, so that we can kind of recharge. And it's been a priority for my husband and I to create that for everybody in this house, because we realized how valuable it was for me during my healing process. So yeah, and I usually create it if I'm going somewhere so I can still have it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you talked about technology and connection, even though technology does allow us to connect. How can people connect with you?
Oh, great question. So I'm on all the things, but Instagram is at Tasha Skillen, so TASHASKILIN, and then Tasha Skillen on Facebook as well. There's a Facebook group that is about to be open for entry called Boldly Becoming You, and it is going to be a community where we have high standards for high quality conversations as well as hard conversations about the 5 life elements we talk about. And so Boldly Becoming You is open to men and women who are driven to find solutions to their purpose and help them create and design the life that they want to live in this messy life, and accepting, things as they are, while also not negotiating on what is in part of their day-to-day life, so they can pursue their purpose.
I am so in love with that. That
Yeah,
is like, makes my heart so happy.
yeah, isn't it great to find other people who agree with what it is you're doing and can fulfill that? Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a super powerful space for people
It,
to come and grow.
yeah, and it's been, I have a membership community who are doing the same work, but a little bit more intense. So these women are showing up and having hard conversations about, their friendships, which is, interestingly enough, like you said earlier, there's people that are in your life that haven't earned the position where they are now. And we're having conversations about parenting and how we need to teach our children that. And these are conversations I'm having with my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old almost daily, but definitely weekly, about who gets to know what you feel, who gets to know your personal information and your emotions and your vulnerability, and who has to earn it and what that looks like, and all of these things. So we're having those kinds of conversations in another community already, and so I'm really excited about opening up this next round to lay a foundation where people can have honest conversations and be around other people who are doing the same work. I think we underestimate how powerful it is to have other people who are excited about growth and change. When you have that around you, there is no choice but to be energized by that. And I'm really, really excited about seeing how this community builds itself and really starts to lean on each other and support each other as we navigate, real life messy things.
Yeah, I never realized how important the connection was until I created this podcast and started
Yeah.
allowing other people, instead of being afraid of like, oh, we're all in this doing the same thing, and being so fearful of like, oh, well, you're going to steal my customers. But just
Yeah.
allowing everybody to come in. I mean, like these conversations, like there's things that you said that I'm going to go back and listen to, because like I can't wait to be in your space. Like
Right.
it's
And this
all
is
things I
respect for each
need.
other. Yes. Well, and I think that's the thing too. I had a similar thing. I was a little in that scarcity mindset, and being able to shift to, there are 7.6 billion people on this planet. I can't serve them all, and I'm not going to be for all of them. And so I need to have other people around so that when someone says you're not for me, I can say that's okay, but here are all these other people that might be for you. And please, please, please find someone who you can connect with so that you can become your best self, because we all lose out when anybody's hiding from their purpose. And so selfishly, I want you to find whoever it is
Yeah.
that you are supposed to find so that you can fulfill your purpose, so that my children and my grandchildren, whoever else comes into this world, is in a better place because you showed up to do what you're supposed to do here.
Yeah. And I think that's really important with this generation. I mean, I have nieces and nephews, and I'm just watching them grow up in this age of technology. And I'm like, I am so glad I grew up before cell phones and,
Yes.
just barely dabbled in the internet,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the old school computers with the Oregon Trails. Like that was my generation. I am
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
glad because I was able to connect with like being outside and having conversations with people and sharing with who you want to. I mean, I look online and there's so many young kids sharing these huge, massive stories that I'm like, wow, like, do you know that's going to either come back to get you or
Yeah.
that's, like being able to recognize that and teach that to your kids. That's so amazing.
And that's a requirement in our house. That's also non-negotiable that I didn't even think about for myself because it's so innate what we do. But our kids don't have access to their phones 24 hours a day. They get it maybe an hour during the weekdays. But if it's nice outside, they get their phones taken away. So they have to create a solution for themselves to be creative and to create. And it works every single time. And because this is how it's always been, they're very creative. They love going on adventures, and it's been beautiful so far. So again, it's always about boundaries and alignment and figuring out what you're supposed to be doing in the moment.
And to not do it alone
Yes, yeah, for sure,
because you
100%.
will just spin your wheels if you are alone.
Yes, and it's insane how independent I was, but how much better I am now that I'm not having this death grip on my independence, and instead I am welcoming in other perspectives. I'm being, I have a filter. Not every perspective gets taken at the same weight, but I learn so much more. I'm so much more um, grateful for all the different flavors of life and the different ways that people are experiencing life. And it's just so much more rich, and I'm gaining so much more by doing it that way.
Yeah, the connection and listening and being open. I hid for the last 2 years. I was a total hermit. And now I'm actually like meeting people, going out in public and things like that.
And I
And
think we need to sometimes. We need to hibernate, kind of regroup. What's going on? And then
yeah,
then you can spread your wings again.
heal and come out with the light shining.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I agree.
So, as we kind of get towards the end, I want to know if there is one big major nugget that somebody could take away. What would be your biggest piece of advice, nugget, whatever you want to call it, that you want to share?
And so that's a good question. I think one of the things that, if I could magically have everyone fully envelop, is that you are going to be, when you're 99, 105, however you're old you're going to be, looking back at your life, these little moments of anxiety and stress and these things that kind of eat up our energy and our moments with people that we're connecting with are going to be not even on the radar. But what you're always going to remember is the connection you have with other people in your life and the impact that they have, and then vice versa. But you can only do that if you're being present. And so going on the adventure, find a way, whatever your path is, to look for and soak up the opportunities to be present in your life. Look around, use the five senses to start that practice. But the reason we're all here is to help each other learn and grow, to evolve as souls, and to cheer each other on. And so if you're not in a relationship, you have relationships that aren't doing that, or you're not feeling like you're showing up that way, that is your first goal, because once you do that, everything else starts to flow. So picture, what are you going to regret when you're 105 years old? You're not going to regret that you didn't have a car, the certain car. You're not going to regret that you didn't watch that one show. You are going to regret that you didn't get that time with your son or your sister or your partner, or these people that love you and value you and would learn to value you more if you could show up in a real way. So I think that would be it. Find
Yeah.
a way to connect.
Yeah. Don't wait until, you have this perfect whatever to show up. Just show
Yeah.
up right
Just
now.
show up and be curious. Yeah.
I love that. Be curious. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I definitely got a lot out of this, and I think I'm excited to be in your space because you mentioned the whole disconnected with spirituality, and that's what I just learned recently, like in the last two
Yeah.
weeks, that was where my disconnection started, and all the
Yeah.
health issues started was that
Yep.
disconnection. So I'm excited to be in your space, and
Awesome.
I will definitely put all your information in the show notes because
Great.
I want people to be able to find you. And I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to meeting some of your community and listening to your future podcasts as well. Hear some more of your guests and soaking it all up myself.
Yeah. So get out there and feed your body with love.
Absolutely.